There lived a man named Nimrod. Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah. He was the most popular man on the earth at the time. Matter of fact, he was the king of the then-known world. He was responsible for building the cities of Babel. He was the ruler of the then-known world right after the flood. He was full of idolatry and covetousness, drunkenness, and rebelliousness towards God. And he had a phenomenal ability to deceive. Nimrod married a woman named Semiramis. Now, Semiramis and Nimrod became basically king and queen of the then-known world. Well, at some point, Nimrod dies, and he became deified. He was the very first person that was ever deified on planet Earth, and they made him the sun god, which ended up being Baal. The word Baal in your scriptures can be traced back to Nimrod, so it's an interesting reality of history. When you see Baal and Ashtaroth, you're ended up coming all the way back to this story of Nimrod and Semiramis. And so Baal is now ruling the universe as the sun god, and somehow luck has it through the Babylonian legend that Semiramis gets pregnant by the rays of the sun of her deceased husband Nimrod, and she gives birth to a young baby boy named Tammuz. Now, further down in the story, as Tammuz grows and becomes a man, Tammuz actually marries his mother, and they have a very sexual relationship. And that baby Tammuz and his mother Semiramis is where you get the story of Cupid. Cupid, during Valentine's Day, is how the story of Valentine's Day developed, was from Tammuz, who married a very unbiblical relationship with his mother. First of all, in Egypt, they were known as Isis and Osiris. In Phoenicia, they were recognized as Asheroth and Baal, the very same Asheroth and Baal that you see in the scriptures. In Greece, they were Aphrodite and Adonis, or Eros, where we get the word erotic from. And in Rome, they were called Venus and Cupid. That's right, that's where we get Valentine's Day from, and Cupid. Even in the Far East, listen to this, this is amazing, Cupid was known as Zoroaster. Zoroaster is made up of two words, Zoro, which means seed of, and Asheroth, which is Easter. And so what Cupid actually means in the Far East is the seed of Easter, or the seed of his mother. Okay, and that's from the archives, the bookshelf, February 1994, Volume 2, Number 2. We've discovered Easter, Easter eggs, Easter ham, Lent, Cupid and Valentine's Day, where Easter Sunday is, and the sunrise services, and the like. We can see here, this is an ancient picture of Nimrod, that all the sun gods from every region might have had different names, but they can all be traced back to the original sun god, Baal, aka Nimrod. Look at this picture of him with a long beard. You can begin to see where I'm going to go next as we begin to discover what the December 25th holiday, how it gets connected to Santa Claus himself. Some of the different names that Baal had was this. In Persia, it was Mithras, Osiris and Horus and Ra in Egypt. He was called Attis of Rome. And to celebrate their birthdays, the Romans had a great feast called the Feast of Saturnalia. Guess how long it was? 12 days. That's right, which is where we get the 12 days of Christmas from, is right from the Feast of Saturnalia, which is over the Feast of the winter solstice. Tammuz and his mother, Semiramis. If you look on your screen, you're going to see Isis and Osiris, or this is Ishtar and Tammuz. Now, some of you may be asking, well, wait a minute, I celebrate Easter. You're talking about Ishtar. Easter is actually the Anglicization of the word Ishtar. In other words, if you say Ishtar in English, it's pronounced Easter. That's how the etymology of that word evolved over time. What I want you to see is, I want you to see what's on her head is a crescent moon, and in the center of that crescent moon is the actual sun itself. And so the symbol of power of Isis, or Ishtar, was the crescent moon holding the sun itself, her deceased husband, Baal, the sun god. And today we call it Christmas, but back then the Chaldeans called it Yule Day. Do you know what the word Yule literally means? It means the day of the infant. And they were certainly not talking about Jesus. They were talking about Tammuz, who was the son of God, who would one day come back and save them from the world. You see, Satan can't do anything else but take the truth, twist it, and get people to believe a lie. And that's what he did with the story of the birth and the death of our Lord, is he replicated that in paganism. And so at some point his plan was to take the paganism and mix it into Christianity. And whenever you mix holy with the profane, the scriptures call that unholy.